invite you to take a deep breath and close your eyes if it is yours to do. And take a deep breath. And as you exhale, relax. Take another deep breath. And as you exhale, relax even more. Take another deep breath. And as you exhale, relax completely. Notice where you hold the tension in your body. And just let it go. In this moment, all your needs are met. The chair is holding perfectly and securely your body. There's enough oxygen to sustain your life. In this moment, no need to worry about past, about future. Breathe into your heart space and allow for an opening. Notice your thoughts. Notice how you are desperately trying to have no thoughts. And just let it be. Thank your thoughts for sharing your life with you. And let them return to where they came from. Breathe in peace. Breathe out peace. Breathe in love. Breathe out love. Allow yourself to be without judgment, without agenda. Just be in the silence. And we breathe in gratitude and we breathe out gratitude. Gratitude that at any moment in time we can choose to change the train of our thoughts. We can choose to step into the quiet. We can choose to let go of thoughts that are not serving us and invite peacefulness, gentleness, and a presence of being where we can collect, regroup, and begin again. And so it is. And as you are ready, I invite you to open your eyes and return your attention to this here and now.
I stand for love, I stand for peace, I stand for joy and for release, for what is beautiful and true. I stand for hope, I stand for you. I stand for love, I stand for peace, I stand for joy and for release, for what is beautiful and true. I stand for hope, I stand for you. You know our world is in great pain. She needs our loving care again. But there are those who fail to see what we have done and what we need. There is a cost for every act, and now there is no turning back. We burn a bridge, we bang a drum. It's time to rise, our time has come. To stand for love, to stand for peace, to stand for joy and for release, for what is beautiful and true. To stand for hope, to stand for you. If you're thinking it's not urgent, that we've got more time to kill, if you're not the one who'll change things, but for heaven's sakes, who will? So I will move and I will climb the mountain one step at a time, and I won't be swayed, will not stop until we've made it to the top, where we will stand for love and peace. We'll stand for joy and for a release, for what is beautiful and true. We'll stand for hope, we'll stand for you, for what is beautiful and true. I stand for hope, I stand for you.
Well, good morning and welcome. And look at us, we're visited by the little devils of technology. We couldn't play the words for you. Will we be able to play the video? Oh, there weren't words. Oh, I see. Okay, well then we weren't even visited. It's just my thoughts. But Luckily, at any point, I can choose to have different thoughts. So, good morning and welcome. Welcome here in the sanctuary. And those of you who might be joining us now, I'm Rev Gy, here, minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church here in Portage. And I'm delighted that you're choosing to spend this time with you. A few years ago, I had a conversation with a girl who was, it doesn't matter how old she is, but she was about 20 at the time. I was a little older than she is. And I don't remember how we landed on this topic, but we definitely did land on this topic. And she said something like this: well, I have no compassion for these crappy countries where the people are just lazy, they don't do anything to improve on themselves, and then they just expect us to come in and help. After all, they are given hands and feet and brains like we are, and look at what we've created here, and why couldn't they have created the same thing? They haven't, because they're just lazy and don't apply themselves. And usually, this is my reaction when I somehow get into these conversations. One, either I am so overwhelmed by what they say that I can't find my words, and then I'm speechless, or so many words are formulating in my mind that I'm tripping myself, like I'm not able to make a coherent sentence because I just want so many things to say. Now, both are equally ineffective. And what I would like to do when I'm faced with a conversation like this is just to be able to breathe in, collect myself, and then be able to have a calm conversation. Like, have you wondered why? Maybe ask some questions that might shift the awareness and the conversation. This past month, I learned some things. I learned some things because we are now consciously, because we have voted in the 8 principles, this year we are consciously working on dismantling white supremacy and other forms of oppression. And because of that, we have programming in our church to support that mission of ours. And so Eric and I co-facilitated a Thursday evening conversation. Several of you from the congregation, of course, attended. And we will have these monthly. And I encourage all of you to consider attending. No, I'm going to rewind. Don't just consider attending, actually attend. Let's all do the work together, and let's all raise our consciousness so when we don't accidentally have the same thoughts as my friend did, and that when we get into these conversations with friends or whoever, then we can intelligently, calmly engage and have a conversation that might have a chance of perhaps shifting the other's thinking. So I learned things, and I am sure I learned more than you guys do, because I did not grow up in this country. I didn't have the history lessons like maybe you did, although these newer generations probably won't have those lessons, unfortunately. But maybe even you guys have learned some things, but I will share what I learned. What was my aha moment, because I had to prepare for this Thursday evening class. This is what I learned. I learned that when the first settlers came over to this country, they didn't consider themselves as white. They identified themselves by the country of their origin. So if they came from Germany, they were Germans, Irish, and Dutch, and so on and so forth, French, who knows, whoever just came here. And I also learned, and you probably knew this, that when the first settlers came here, there were about, yes, there was, of course, nobody ever counted the Native Americans, the Native people here, between 9 and 18 million of them. And then by the time the white settlers were done with them, there were only 250,000 left. That's a tremendous genocide. Think about that. So many millions reduced to 250,000, not even 1 million. That's a horrible thing. In Canada, about 125,000 natives were left. Tremendous genocide. The white settlers did that. The Irish, the German, the French, the English, whoever came here. That's who did that. So when they first came, some had more status, they had more money, and then a lot of servants also came, who had to do the menial jobs. And then Africans were also shipped in, the black people. They were also shipped in, and they were also reduced to doing just the menial jobs. There were servants, slaves. Now, the servants, the indentured servants, and the blacks were all communing together. So they formed their little group, and they way outnumbered the people of means, way outnumbered them. And in 1676, and I'm never good with numbers, so feel free to correct me, go back. In fact, why not go and Google it? Because if you Google it, it'll stick with you even better. Maybe I should on purpose give you bad dates. But I'm going to say 1766, but maybe it was 1676. There you go, Google it. And the servants, the white servants, indentured servants, and the blacks revolted. And it shook the ruling class. They were able to subdue this revolt, but it forever changed the layout of this country. So after they subdued this revolt, they were wondering, what could we do so this never happens again? Our well-being and our position in society must never be threatened like this again. What should we do? And this is the brilliant idea they came up with. You got to hand it to them. Brilliant. We will divide and conquer. So what did that look like? They told the whites, the servants, they said, okay, you are different. You are white, and those are blacks. And because you're white, you have now rights that blacks can never have, because they are people who are beneath you. You are better than them. You have the right to join a militia. You have the right to own a firearm. Your status in society is elevated, is higher than theirs. They are lesser people, the blacks are. The blacks have no such rights. And it worked. It was brilliant. Because after that, the whites didn't want to join forces with these lowly blacks. They felt, oh, we're better than them. And that was the base of forming the social structure in this country. Now, I also learned how late Texas was attached to the US, and Arizona even later. That's like in the mid to late 1800s. I didn't know that. So the US was still expanding its territory, and then it became an empire because they also attached, they went and conquered the Philippines and Hawaii later, and not Puerto Rico, but the Philippines. Anyway, again, Google it. And so I learned that too. But what struck me, how deliberate it was to create the concept of white versus black. And it's really white versus black. It's not really white and black. It's white versus black, against black. And then build a social structure where the blacks and the colored people, it wasn't just the blacks, the Philippines too. I mean, the Mexicans. We created a social structure to exploit these people. So these people would work for menial wages. Blacks were slaves and others for menial wages, very low wages, low wage people. And then I understand why it's so difficult to engage the conversation around white supremacy. Because if you are used to having all the power, and now somebody else either wants some or gets some power, then you feel like you've been stolen from. If you're used to having all the power, and if someone else who historically had none is now getting some or wants some, you feel like you've been stolen from. You're used to having all the power. And then there's the belief that if they get power as well, my power somehow is worth less. What's going to happen with me? And then the fear comes in, and then the resistance comes in, and it's horrible. So then the other reason it's hard to engage in conversations and in raising consciousness around white supremacy and racism is because the system would want us to talk about individual cases. Well, I'm not a racist. I mean, how could I be a racist? Well, I have a black friend. I have, I don't know, an Asian friend. I adopted a black child. I adopted an Asian child. I cannot be a racist. And with that, we kill the conversation. There's no more talk about this. But the reality is that the racism is built into the system. The systems are skewed such that it disadvantages people who are other than white. Also, people who are other than straight. And now, what they want us to believe is that it also people who are other than Christian. The Christian nation, the Christian white nation. So it's the systems that are skewed. That's why they say, oh, well, with the police, there's just a few bad apples. Hell no. The system is bad. And within the system, there are some who are even more far gone than the system itself. But the system there's a not oppresses, but the system. Wow, the system is the one who. Okay, I'm going to try to think otherwise. The system oppresses people of color, so they are singled out. People of color then are singled out, and of course they say that. Blacks on average, when they're stabbed, they find drugs on them. more often than on whites, where more blacks are being pulled over. If all the whites, if equal numbers would be pulled over and equal numbers would be searched, then I'm curious what would be the result. We don't know. So then there's just the assumption that the blacks are the drug users, they are the druggies. I also remember when I came to this country when I was 23, and I came from a very white Eastern European country. So I really never met black people. I really didn't have any preconceived notions other than what I saw in the movies, and to me it was always very exotic to see a black person. But I came to this country, and these Hungarians would pick me up occasionally, and they would take me to Cleveland and they'd show me around, or take me to Detroit and show me around, Hungarians who have lived here for a long time, or take me to Chicago and show me around, which was lovely. And then invariably, there would be that time when they would say, okay, now let's lock our doors and let's go, and then we'll show you the other side of town, the dangerous side of town. And these Hungarians who emigrated here, the ones who drove me around, I'm not going to say all Hungarians are like that, but the ones who drove me around, they all had the same story. This is how they like to live. This is all they care. Even if you give them something, they destroy it. There is a book. If you never read it, I recommend it. It's called The Color of Law. I don't remember who wrote it, but if Miriam is watching this, I'm sure by now it's in the comments of our Facebook Live page, who is the author of this book, The Color of Law. And read it. To me, that was, again, such an eye-opener. And I would never, ever let anybody have that sort of argument in front of me. This is how they like to live. This is who they are. This is what they choose. If you give them a nice neighborhood, oh, they just run it down. Read that book, and you'll have a solid argument too. Again, I don't know who said this. It goes like this. It's the whites have an invisible, undeserved package of privilege. Invisible, undeserved package of privilege. Even I have that, although I'm a first-generation immigrant. Invisible, undeserved package of privilege. It's very hard. This society is not balanced. If we don't know the history of how this country originated, and if we just go by myths, that all these settlers came over, oh, they took this country over, and then they built this beautiful thing. Sure, there was a civil war, which then again, the good side won. And then look at this life that we created. This is the American spirit. This American spirit is built on the sweat and back of blacks, of slaves. This wouldn't have been possible without that. We have to know our origins, otherwise the arguments we make are like my friend made, who had no idea what it's like to live in a country that's been oppressed by a country like the US, that's been exploited by a country like the US or England or any other nation who had colonies. Without history, without knowing our past, our present is then misinformed. And then we don't consciously make the choices to right the wrongs. We are given the invisible, undeserved package of privilege, and based on that we make judgments. And then we write off people. So, all of us in here almost all of us in here, have the invisible, undeserved package of privilege. Know that. And use this privilege to educate yourself and educate everyone you come in touch with. Use this privilege with power and finesse, so you can change at least people around you, thinking around you, and when you see systems that are skewed in favor of you, call it out every single time. Not once, not twice, every single time. If we have been given this undeserved privilege, then it is incumbent upon us to fight for the oppressed, who was it? Martin Luther King Jr. said that unless, I'm paraphrasing, unless you are fully realized, I cannot be fully realized myself. So we understand that we are one. We understand that if you don't have the rights that I do, I don't have the rights either. There is a burden of having this undeserved privilege. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing for anybody. This is a lose-lose situation for everybody. So let us use our privilege to educate, elevate, and change these skewed systems. And it does begin with awareness, and it does begin with commitment and determination. And I love it that we are willing to do this together. And so it is. Yes. Sorry, I'm not done. I don't know what's wrong with me today. I'm not done. I would like you to watch this video because while I now understand what caused for us to see the world in black and white, I also know what is it that can help us blur the contours and then help us again just see each other as people, and that is love. So I would like you to watch this video.